gentlemen, welcome to the Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole meeting for February 1st, 2022. I ask clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Daney?
Here.
Gansey? Here. Gunstein? Yes. Hopkins?
Here.
Ranke?
Present.
Swansky?
Yes, here.
President Wallace?
Here. First item on our agenda this evening is Building and Zoning. Chairman Hopkins.
Thank you, President Wallace. We have two items on our agenda tonight. The first one is the proposed text amendments for massage and bodywork establishments. With that, I will turn it over to Roberta to find out what has changed since the last time we had this before us.
So, not much has changed as far as the zoning is concerned. The staff met with Mr. Austin Hopkins as directed, and as far as zoning is concerned, there was one valid point that he brought up that was pertaining to what if a hair salon or nail salon would like to have a massage room as an accessory use. This text amendment already covers that. It would require if an established hair salon or nail salon wish to have a massage establishment as an accessory use, they would have to apply for a massage or bodywork establishment license. The other update to this text amendment was as far as the amortization goes, for specifically a massage or bodywork establishment that has now been set at 3 years. So those were the primary changes, if I'm not mistaken, Brian. And then Brian Mraz, he will be addressing the other regulations as far as the licensing itself.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the committee?
I want to be clear on one thing. I'm not sure how we're going to, the business has to apply for a license, right?
Two different things.
Okay, that's why I'm confused.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What was that, Brian?
This is just a zoning. This is zoning.
This is a location.
We're talking about where in the village they can go. Currently, they can go in your commercial districts. Proposing to change that and make it a prohibited use in the commercial district, a permitted use in the office research district, and also permitted as an accessory use for certain principal businesses, accessory to those. And that's what Roberta addressed with the beauty parlors, as we're saying, okay, if it's a beauty parlor so we don't have people slipping through the cracks, you still have to get our massage establishment license for that accessory use within your, combined business if they have a couple of uses. So that brings us to the other topic if you're ready to talk about that.
No, I had a couple questions on the zoning part of it. So in the event that a massage company, let's call it a corporate company, massage facility, i.e. Massage Envy, wants to build on Route 59 in a strip mall, would they be allowed to apply for a special use in that area?
No.
So we're basically saying no massage parlors except in the industrial
in the
park?
commercial,
So the map,
in the office research district.
the map identifies the areas following the proposed text amendment language where massage establishments as a principal use could be located in the village.
Which in your notes here it says Brewster Creek and Southwind, correct?
No, it says Blue Heron
Or, I'm sorry, Blue Heron.
and Southwind.
I mean, I can't see a massage business wanting to open up in Blue Heron or Southwind. I mean, it seems odd to put it in an industrial park, but that's just...
It's not just the industrial park, it's the office research, and admittedly, there's not a ton in the village. But this is to address a problem, and we believe the licensing, which we're going to talk about next, is improved. It isn't sufficient alone. This has been a problem that's gone on for 30 years.
Well, going back to Trustee Gunstein's question, if the establishment couldn't apply for a special use, could they apply for a text amendment?
I couldn't hear
Could
you.
they apply for a text amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so there would be an avenue for some relief from these regulations.
harder because this is a text amendment as well, but you're correct.
Does that open the floodgates to, once you do a text amendment, does each business
Well,
have to apply for that?
With that, it depends how narrow the text amendment was. Let's say in that example, it was the B4 district, because that's more likely, I don't know, for whatever reason. It would only be whatever you approve, so it wouldn't be in B1, B2, B3, but in that example, it would only be the B4 district, because a text amendment
Changes
is going to be applicable village-wide. But it could be, more saleable, if you will, if the narrower it is.
Instead of prohibiting it, if we did make it a special use, that's still being more restrictive than we currently are, correct?
It's primarily a special use now. There's probably a couple districts where it's a permitted use, but in my opinion, a special use alone is not sufficient to address the issue and solve the problem, because the courts have said, Living Lord case, that a special use is tantamount to a permitted use unless this one use creates so much a different side effects, if you will, than a similar use elsewhere in the district. So in effect, yes, I would rather have, special use than flat out permitted use, because then it's as of right, but I don't, in my opinion, the special use itself, you're hard pressed to deny a special use.
And just for the record, this does consume a lot of staff's time and resources to try to, make these places compliant. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's correct.
Tons.
Yeah, and it's like the village attorney said, this has been an ongoing problem since we've been here. It doesn't get public, but it's been an ongoing problem since we've been here and way before us. This has been a 30-year thing. So we really need to figure out a way to not only change the zoning, but also change the licensing. So that's what we're doing both of. So any other,
I'll be brief on the licensing if we're done with the zoning question.
Yes, please.
Well, I had a question on clarification on the zoning. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, so if we do this as a text amendment, restricting where these facilities are going to be, and then in the future, someone comes up and they want us to relook at this. If I heard you correctly, then we would need to do another text amendment to turn it all back the way it was?
Well, it would be whatever the person who wants to change, whatever text amendment they want, to go back to exactly what you had, to restrict it some other way. But it would be an amendment to your code based on what you are willing to approve. Trustee Ranke brought up the issue of, a petitioner, like a business, buying a business and wanting to put it on Route 59, as opposed to the board. The board can amend its ordinances anytime it wants. So a future board could change it back, but staff's recommendation is that we think this would be the most effective means of dealing with the problem. And then I'm going to talk about what we did on licensing in a minute. But even with, I think, improvements, and I think vast improvements, I have another idea to throw out there with it. In my opinion, that's not sufficient to deal with this issue. It's just, and is it a little bit of throwing out the baby with the bathwater? Yes, it is. But this is, I think, a real problem. It's not just Bartlett, it's other municipalities as well, but.
It definitely is, it is a problem statewide or nationwide, I'm sure. We just have to be prepared that when somebody calls, a legitimate company, our general answer is going to be, no, we do not allow your company to operate in our town.
Well, the NET lab,
On Route 59.
Right.
oh, and
Using
that
Route 59
example,
as an example.
you're
Okay.
correct,
I'm sorry.
you're right.
Roberta, can you, what color would be permitted use now up there?
So, with these, I know it's hard to see, there's two
That is.
circles, two circles here, then we go out to, this is Blue Heron,
Right. What was the first red circle?
this is Westgate Commons, and the, office building that's just west of Westgate Commons.
Got it.
And then there's one OR district along Stearns Road here.
So the 2 or 3 locations?
5.
Oh, there are 5, okay. I can't think of
Some big areas, and the one that we've had no problems with is the NET lab that's zoned
Right.
OR,
Yeah.
and they have that use in there. So that's really what gave us the idea of talking about OR, is where it could be permitted.
Have any of the massage establishments that this will impact been notified and said anything?
They will be, I mean, it's public, you know,
It's just a proposal, first committee meeting.
I mean, other than it's a public meeting, the agendas are on there, but we didn't send a notice. If the board passed it, we would send them a copy of the ordinance as well as the new regulations, if the board adopts those as well.
The next step would be to send this to the zoning board of appeals for further review
Just
and to
the
do a...
zoning issue.
Yes,
Yes.
to conduct a public hearing. Does anyone object to that?
Not at all.
No, we have to
I do have one more question. What, I saw in here where it said you had a 5-year amortization, so
Well,
they can...
it's actually 3.
So the...
When I
let me
drafted
ask-
the ordinance before, there's a text amendment
Right.
to your non-conforming use section, and I said if it's a change, it's a non-permitted use as opposed to structure, that the board could amortize it, or you're saying, somewhere between 3 and 5 years. With this particular use, based on Trustee Rinke's comments at the last meeting, that said he could support, wouldn't support anything more than 3 years. So this draft has 3 years. Again, this is just a draft. It has to go to the ZBA or maybe the new Plan and Zoning Commission, whatever it may be, for a public hearing. And, you know, the typical notice for a public hearing, and there'll be input at that.
Any other comments from the committee? So we'll send this to the zoning board of appeals for further review and to conduct a public hearing. The next item on our agenda is the amendment of the Massage and Body Works regulation. With that, you want to start, Brian, or?
Yeah, well, I'll try and be brief. So we had extensive regulations. At that time, we were trying to plug a hole in the state law that dealt with Asian Body Works approaches in businesses. So they didn't have to be, the practitioners didn't have to be licensed, but massage therapists did. And so we tried to plug that loophole. Well, for whatever reason, that state law, the Massage Licensing Act, was amended, and the state said, we're going to take over licensing Asian Body Works practitioners and certain other Body Works type approaches, which are Asian Oriental medicine, and, you know, and there's a basis to it in healing and things. But to be clear, we have the ability to license the businesses, the establishments, but what they took away from municipalities with the first Massage Licensing Act was licensing the individual therapists, massage therapists, and then they expanded that to the Asian Body Works practitioners, and to some degree, other Body Works practitioners, because there's all kinds of different permutations of things that would be exempt. But when they did that, they created all these other exemptions. Well, it doesn't apply if it's this, and it doesn't apply if it's there. I've called down to the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation to say, you know, what's the update? Because we don't see Asian Bodyworks practitioners' licenses being issued. They may have issued them a massage therapist license, but we've never seen one of those issued. And, you know, and that's been a couple years since that's been in place. So we're reluctant to change our ordinances. They're not, the state isn't up to speed on issuing them. But that law's been in place for a while. And I've got a supervisor who's supposed to call me back for the last 10 days, and I haven't received a call. But be that as it may, we can see what the law says. And we're going to say, if you get a state license, we stay out of it. We're talking about practitioners now. That's what you've got, and we have nothing to say about it. But if it's one of these areas, and there's a list of all kinds of different types of practices, that they say that's exempt, that means the state doesn't license it. Well, if the state doesn't license, under your home rule powers, you have in my opinion, the ability to license. So that's what the changes do. They were like, okay, if you have a state license, hands off on us. If it doesn't, it falls in the cracks, you still need a practitioner's license from us. And so most of the changes deal with those things. Austin Hopkins made some recommendations, just as time has changed and things we could do. Those are in here. I'm proposing when this comes back, when I got this out, I hadn't completed my research on the ability to make this applicable to landlords as well. Because what we see is a business gets sold, whether it's because they're not making money or because we arrest somebody for this, and now they sell it to another massage establishment who pays money. The landlord goes and consents to the assignment of the lease. These people open up, nobody's got a license. So now, we're like, get out, you need a license, and we're going through this process. But, you know, the landlord has consented to the lease. They've invested some money, you know, and it's a mess. So my proposal is that, you know, landlords, you know, I can't say you can't assign it, but if you do, and they don't have a license, you could be fined too. And we will send, if those regulations get adopted, we will send them to all the commercial and shopping center in town and say, hey, you know, you can be on the hook here. Now, for fines, you know, we can't interfere with their contract per se, but, you know, they have to be licensed. So it's a chicken egg thing when a business is sold. Do we get the lease first or whatever? Just say, hey, it shouldn't be effective till then, and if they're on notice, they know how to deal with that issue. But again, I'm telling you that's a good thing and it improves it. You're going to have a period in that 3 years where we're still going to have these things. You're going to have these regulations that deal with those accessory uses, or where they're permitted in the OR districts or that PD district. And I think we need the regulations updated to deal with it. But I am of the opinion that even though I think they're good and better than almost every other town, if I do say, I don't think it's sufficient to deal with this issue. And I think my opinion is the zoning change is advisable.
Let me ask, if this is approved by the CBA and it comes back before the village board and it's approved by the village board, I'm very concerned about the licensing of the practitioner, so to speak. When would that take effect? Would that take effect immediately?
Well, we still won't license massage therapists. We right now say that Asian Bodyworks practitioners are supposed to get a license from us. Nobody's applied in years until they got arrested and say, hey, you've got all these people in there, they don't have a license. That was 3 years ago. So it's not like, because I think what happens is the state's made it easier for these exceptions to get a state license. And so they're just apply to be as, I don't say just because there is training involved for a massage therapist, but those are the licenses we see. In all the more recent arrests, there's licensed, state licensed massage therapists.
So if the practitioner doesn't have a state license, then they have to do a criminal background check?
We can't do background checks if they are covered by the state. If they slip through the state cracks, then they need a license from us, whether, we will never be issuing massage therapist licenses. But we could issue Bodyworks practitioners licenses to, if they're not regulated by the state. So someone in there doing that would say, where's your state license? Oh, I don't have it, I'm exempt. You're not exempt from us. You need a license.
So, a question then about that. So you're talking about practitioners' licenses, is that correct?
Well, this chapter, both chapters, 29A and 29B, most importantly, require licenses for the businesses. So there's a massage establishment business license. There's a Bodyworks approach business license. But the question was directed to practitioners, and the only thing we would be licensing as far as practitioners goes would be Bodyworks practitioners who aren't licensed by the state because they're exempt from state licensing.
Okay, so do we know what the professional standards should be for an Asian Bodyworks practitioner?
Yes, they're in the ordinance, and they've been in the last ordinance as well. There's all these different bodies. They require a certain level of training and what the areas can be. I will tell you that often when we were looking at these in the beginning, they were in Mandarin. We had to get transcripts, and they came from schools in China. But some were legit, but there are standards that have been in the old ordinance. They're still there, and those standards are good.
Any other questions from the committee? What's the next step for this?
Eventually, it'll come back to the board. I don't know if it makes more sense, and Paul can address whether, we talked about its step today, bringing it back together.
Makes sense.
The license changes don't need to go to ZBA for public hearing, but we thought that we would bring these two items back together after the public hearing on the text amendment so that you get the full context of the public input. Yep. And then we would just run them both together.
That makes sense. All right, with that, that's all we have under building and zoning tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Hopkins. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn to executive session to discuss pending, probable, or imminent litigation pursuant to Section 2C11 of the Open Meetings Act.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Ranky, seconded by Trustee Hopkins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Daney? Gansey?
Yes.
Gunstein?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Ranky?
Yes.
Swansky?
Yes.
We are adjourned to executive session.